Hello folks, Dragonkeeper96600, and I'm here with the review of the second episode of Transformers Combiner Wars. Sorry I'm a few days late on this one. Some stuff came up, nothing really major, just some stuff, whatever. You don't need to know about my life. But anyway, here it is, 2 days late, my review of the second episode, which is called The Council. Now, I kind of have a lot to say about that episode, which is striking because in this episode, not a lot happens. Let me just start where I started last week with the basic plot. This episode is called The Council, and it is about the Council. So, if I've never, made an animated series before, I hope to someday, but I haven't yet. But if I were making a mini-series that I knew had a 5-minute running time, I would, try to spend that 5 minutes to get the audience's attention. Majority of this episode, the vast majority of this episode, is spent with a conference. A fucking conference! You have giant robots! It's a perfect setup for some action. And what do? You talk for 5 minutes straight. I mentioned this in the Starscream preview, right? Where I said that, fake politics is hard to make interesting. Oh man, is this show floundering. I'm literally, the whole... Okay, first of all, the episode opens up with some flying around. And it's it starts off, it's actually kind of a nice segue, I guess, if you have to look for things to compliment about this show, which I feel like I should. If there's something competent, I should bring it up. But anyway, we kind of fly around through this velvety background of stars, which I guess looks pretty cool, and then we fly into Cybertron's surface, and the flying of the camera, which is not meant to be any particular perspective, I think, then sees into Starscream's perspective as he flies over Cybertron. That's kind of cool, just taking an objective third-person camera view and transferring it to the view of a specific character. And things are moving around, they're pretty dynamic, they're not the prettiest. I watched the Steven Universe episode, Bubbled, recently, which is this season 3, I think, finale of Steven Universe. And, space in that episode was rendered as just backgrounds, two-dimensional backgrounds. They actually looked better in Steven Universe than they did in Transformers. And, with, lots of colors and stuff, and, not a whole lot in the background was moving, but it looked really, really pretty. And, there are some shots that look okay. The shot of Cybertron has, this kind of art style that is sort of reminiscent of what... I'm trying to think of what it looks like, but it's, really beautiful and, CG, but it's also kind of cartoony, and it looks pretty. But there aren't very many shots in the show that look pretty. We still have the same Vaseline problem that we had from the last episode, where, everything has, this weird bluish tinge. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, there's a weird part where Starscream is flying over the buildings where it looks like the frame rate dropped and it really chugs. It looks bad. It looks like a cutscene, in a video game. And I know this is machinima. I know cutscenes are kind of what they do. But I don't think I should lay off criticizing something just because the people making it can't do better. Because I want the idea to be clear that if another studio can do better, you should. I don't want to lay off, I don't want to feel like the bar has been set and, can't be moved. That doesn't help anyone. Now, you might be wondering why I've been talking about the opening flying bit so long. Well, it's a 5-minute episode, and the flying goes on for, a minute. So that's already 1/5 of your preciously short running time messed up with just spectacle. And it's not even that great of a spectacle. I mean, Cybertron looks fine. It looks okay. Cutscenes aside. There's some generic-looking video game explosions happening beneath Starscream. I don't know what's causing them. And then Starscream goes into the council room where Rodimus and the Mistress of Flame are already waiting. By the way, really big council room, even though the council seems to be comprised of 3 people total. They're in this huge auditorium, and there's seats and what looks like a PowerPoint screen on the wall, but there's only 3 people who use it. Where are the other council members? Are there any other council members? Why are you in this big-ass room instead of, a small meeting room with a water cooler or something? I don't know. You guys are splurging a little too much, especially after a planet that was supposedly torn up by a centuries-long war, if not a millennia-long war, if not a millions of years-long war. But never mind. Okay, so after that, for the rest of the episode, basically, we sit in on Cybertronian politics. And it's dull. But more than just being dull, it's like, okay, I'm going to do political commentary now, and I didn't think I would have to do this, but I do. And I feel like I've seen enough political commentary this year for me to do it in a fictional setting. So here we go. So we got 3 council members. 1 Autobot, Rodimus, 1 Decepticon, Starscream, and 1 religious leader from another planet, Mistress of Flame. Yeah, I don't get that. They never mention why the Mistress of Flame is on the council, or how that makes any sense. It's like if we needed a new speaker for the House here in the US, and we chose the Pope. It makes no sense. She's not from Cybertron. She's a religious leader, and she clearly brings a perspective that doesn't really jive with Rodimus and Starscreams when it comes to the war. So basically, the subject of the meeting is, what do we do about the combiner problem? 3 council members are aware of what happened in Communist between Menasor and Computron, and they say that Cybertronians are getting scared of apparently increased combiner violence. You have to kind of connect the dots yourself a lot with this show. So, basic subject of the meeting. What do we do? The response? We should study the enigma of combination, which we have, in order to find out what it does. Shouldn't you have been doing that already? I mean, you seem surprisingly ignorant about this advanced artifact that you have. And this actually brings me to another point about this series that I've already noticed. I mentioned already that this series kind of assumes that you're a fan. Last episode, it didn't explain what the combiners were. Even in this second episode, it doesn't explain what the Enigma of Combination is. The Enigma of Combination is an artifact originally possessed by Nexus Prime, one of the original 13, that allowed him to, combine, and it has the ability to spread that same power into other groups of Transformers, so it can turn a group into a combiner. You know how I knew that? I looked it up in TF Wiki after I saw this episode, because I didn't know before that, and because the show didn't tell me, because it kind of assumed I already knew. And it does that a lot. The thing with the Mistress of Flame herbing on the council, they assume that you watch the preview trailers and would know who these people are. Why are we even bothering telling us a story if you're assuming that we know it already? It's weird. It's very strange. And I get it. You're catering to the audience you're most likely to get. And it is true, the vast majority of people who watch this are going to be Transformers fans. The vast majority of people who even know about it are Transformers fans. And so, assuming that we know some stuff works. But don't assume that we're always on the same page. And, maybe that's just due to the writing because, writing in the show is a little weird, especially about this meeting. Sometimes a character will, say something that doesn't really follow what the character before them said.
We could try to control them all.
Are you suggesting we use the Enigma of Combination to actually create more combiners?
With an army like that, I could turn this threat into an asset.
And it's really, it's not too noticeable because it's a 5-minute running time. So they're trying to, there are certain story beats that they want said or they want shown or they want explained. And they're, running out of time. But, when you watch it multiple times and you kind of follow these conversations again, it's wait, how'd you get from that? What? This is the first Transformers show where I actually feel like I'm watching Aliens because it's that hard to follow. It's you don't think the same way that we normal humans do. You're either far advanced or someone was taking a smoke break in the writing room and forgot to finish the script, so they just kind of... Maybe that's too mean, but so let me discuss with you some of the so meeting's dull. And the reason for that is these characters are sleepwalking. Like, the voice acting itself doesn't make them seem like they're legally alive. I mean, they're just they're just saying stuff. They're not acting, they're just saying stuff. The Mistress of Flame in particular, the lady they got to voice her,
It is only a matter of time before this gets out of control.
she's really terrible. Like, I picked on Menasor last episode, but he did have a few lines where it, like, a lot of emotion came through, or it was striking or something. And, you know, it sounded almost charismatic at points. Not Solus Prime, Mistress of Flame, who's supposed to look like Solus Prime. Mistress of Flame has nothing. It's just monotone. I think G1 Soundwave had less monotone than her. At least he laughed, which sounded awesome, by the way. But, yeah, it's like, I know you're voicing a giant robot lady, but please try not to sound like a robot. Oh dear. It's not good. The only actor I've really liked, honestly, so far is Starscream's. And again, not because of any kind of acting talent, but because that voice sounds like Starscream's, and it sounds hard to do. Like, so, I feel like this is more, I feel like this is maybe a problem more with bad direction than just bad actors, because I feel like that guy who plays Starscream, whose name I don't know, it's Frank something, if he were to, like, get better direction on, like, a for TV Transformers series, I bet he'd sound really good. But here he's not given the most exciting material, and he's clearly struggling. They're all struggling. So let me, like. And I think this brings me to another thing of, like, remember, the show is for adults. So everything that's happening here, all the changes, all the things that are different from kids' shows, is what they think adults want. They're trying to cater to us, to me, to you, most likely. And so what do adults like? Well, adults like violence. So let's make the Transformers die more easily. But even that isn't really clear. I'll get to that in a little bit. And the result, the Transformers are weaker than they are on the shows for kids. What else do adults like? Adults like maturity. So let's make the characters more mature. As a result, they are dull and have no personality. Like a lot of adults like Transformers Prime. Even though that show is technically for children, a lot of adults watched it and enjoy it. I know because I'm one of them. And characters in that show had personality. Like Knockout, flamboyant, and, you know, all that stuff. Then there was RC, headstrong, mature, but could lose her temper. Then there was Bulkhead, and Wheeljack, and Smokescreen, and even Soundwave had a little bit of character to him if you look at his animation. And surprising amount of sarcasm for a guy who doesn't talk. And when you look at even Robots in Disguise, which is a show that I agree is not as good as Prime, even then, I've mentioned that one of the stronger points of that show is the characters and how charismatic they are. You got angry Yankee Thunderhoof. You got the suave and seductive Steeljaw. You've got Grimlock, who's as lovable as they come. I don't much like Strong Arm or Sideswipe's personalities, but at least they seem awake. So what it seems like Combiner was just trying to do is get rid of the quirkiness of certain characters. And as a result, they become really, really not there. Like, I get if you don't want your characters to seem cartoony, but they have to seem something. And I get this is a setting where they're trying to be professional. But, like, there's one moment in the meeting, this riveting meeting that we spend most of the episode in, where Starscream mentions that since they don't know much about the Enigma of Combination that they have on their person, Starscream wants to retrieve Computron and Menasor's bodies and basically do an autopsy on them to figure out more about how combiners work. The other characters just kind of move on from the statement without commenting on it, and I feel like that moment is both in character for Starscream and a good chance for more character development. Like, Starscream just basically suggested dissecting his fellow Cybertronians for science. That's a brilliant moment if it was handled well. But, like, our is Rodimus disturbed by this at all? Do they question him? Is Starscream enthusiastic about the prospect of cutting people open for science? Nope, they just move on, and like nothing comes of it. It's like, I want mad scientist Starscream. In fact, why haven't we had him in that personality? He showed it sometimes in G1 and sometimes in Prime and animated, but like, let's give me Starscream that's like predominantly has that personality. That'd be fun. But anyway, and there's a lot of things like that where it's like, that's like the biggest one that like could be a character moment but just moves on. I mentioned before, characters have a quirkiness sucked out of them. Starscream, in particular, is a character who was almost nothing but quirk. In particular, G1 Starscream, and this is supposed to be at least a version of G1 Starscream, is known for his impulsiveness and his ambition. In this setting, he's supposed to be like the responsible leader. So the ambition is gone, since he has the thing he wanted and is burdened by it. The impulsiveness is also gone, because in the meeting, Starscream is the one who's trying to keep Rodimus and the Mistress of Flame calm. Like saying, calm down, we can figure this out. That doesn't sound like any Starscream I've ever heard of. And I get what they're trying to do. Like, Starscream has a large fan base, and a lot of people want to see him reach the potential that they think he has to be something better. And that would be compelling if we saw the development of how he got to it. But basically, we only got the preview trailer, which has hearsay from him about how he got this leadership position. We're assuming that he has the same personality as he did in G1, at least before he got elected, but we don't know that because we didn't see it. Show don't tell. I shouldn't have to tell you this. Machinima, I mean, they don't have the highest budget, but they're professionals. They make shows for a living. Even though they reuse assets from other stuff, I assume they would know how to do this. And it's like a mature Starscream. The reason people like Armada Starscream is because him being mature was unexpected. Because he had development and he wasn't always as clear-headed or as sacrificing or as, dare I say it, loving as he was near the end. And like early on, he looked like he was just a G1 Starscream with a sword. He was brash, he was arrogant, he snatched things, he lost his temper easily, and seeing him slowly move out of that was what was so compelling. The script was bonkers, like absolute, but the reason we were interested in is because he moved. Same thing with Prime and the brief stint where Starscream decided to leave the Decepticons, and it was like a sobering moment. It was more powerful because we saw how he fell to get to that point. We haven't seen that in Combiner War. Starscream just starts off the mature voice of reason. Not interesting. I'm sorry. It's not. I have very little to say about Rodimus because he has no personality. Moving on. Oh, I do have one thing to say. Apparently, Rodimus had the idea of using the Enigma combination to build an army. First of all, they don't know how the Enigma works, so they don't know if it can do that. Second of all, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. It's like, we have a hamster problem. There's too many hamsters. We should bring in more hamsters so we can control the hamsters. Like, do you see? If you have a problem with one thing, the solution is not to bring in more of that thing. That only works with wildfires. And even then, only under certain conditions. And like, I keep trying to call her Solus Prime, and she's not. She's a Mistress of Flame. Mistress of Flame. Mistress of Flame had the idea of using the Enigma combination to wipe out all the combiners. First of all, you don't know that it does that, which is something she admits almost immediately afterward. Man, the ignorance they have about this ancient artifact is astonishing to me. Second, what is it with these women from Caminus and wanting to kill? I mean, first it's Windblade and her bloodlust, and then Mistress of Flame casually suggests genocide as an option, something that Starscream has to call her out on. And then she has the gall to criticize Starscream for killing people during the war. I mean, first of all, you weren't in that war because you were on Caminus. And two, shut the fuck up. You just suggested killing people, and then you couldn't criticize another person for killing people? Folks, let's play a game called Politicians. 1 minute I'll say one thing, and the next minute I'll say something the complete opposite. If they're trying to go for realistic political discourse, that moment might have pulled it off, but still not entertaining, and still not what I think of when I watch Transformers. There is one bit of tension that I kind of like throughout the episode, and like at first when you see like the council talking, there are some shots where you see them through like this green screen with a crosshair in the middle, and it looks like someone's watching them, and that's, you know, it's an easy convention to do, but it worked okay. Like, you know, it brings up like a bit of intrigue, like who's watching them, and it turns out it's Windblade looking through the sniper rifle that she apparently picked up of Maxima. I read that Maxima was billed as a sniper character before the show came out. I didn't know that. At no point does she snipe, and she's not going to because she's dead. So that seems a weird detail to include. Why not just have Windblade have a sniper rifle? Like, instead of introducing characteristics to a character that you're not going to use. But never mind. So, okay. So there's one point where Windblade, having heard about the Enigma of Combination from Menasor, even though the Mistress of Flame claims that the fact that they have the Enigma of Combination is a complete secret, never mind that it's displayed openly in a very tall building surrounded by other very tall buildings, I guess that nobody around was questioning what the big swirly mysterious light in the council building was, but whatever. So Windblade, who now knows about the Enigma of Combination, is trying to shoot it with the sniper rifle. But because someone pushes down on her arm and she misses, and in a weird bit of editing, the shot looks like it went too low and is going to hit the room that the council was standing in earlier. But then when you cut to the next shot, it looks like it's making a beeline for the ground floor where the council currently is, and then it hits Starscream square in the shoulder.
In the meantime, I can have Wheeljack.
I was pretty emotionless when I watched this episode the first time, but at that moment I just burst out laughing because it almost seems like a joke. Like, of all the possible different directions Maxima could have accidentally shot, she ends up shooting directly at Starscream. It's like, and like, the weird editing makes it look like the shot isn't even going in that direction in the first place. So it's like God personally decides that the shot should go there. It's really surreal. And first of all, this is something I didn't even notice until it was pointed out by someone else on Tumblr. But Starscream was shot with a gun, and it's clear that it hurts because he clutches his arm and falls over and like writhes on the ground. Like, it's clearly hurting him. But he's not visibly injured in any way. There doesn't even any plumes of smoke coming off of him. There's not a scratch. It just stings, it looks like. And that's really weird. When last episode we saw Windblade cleaving through Menasor with a single swing, or Maxima just falling the fuck apart when she falls on the ground. And it's like, okay, that gun was apparently strong enough, if Windblade's actions beforehand were any indication, to take out the Enigma of Combination, this ancient artifact that has existed beyond, like, recorded history, basically. So one shot from this thing would have destroyed the Enigma of Combination, supposedly, but it could not kill Starscream. Couldn't even injure him permanently. And, like, so basically, this gun that Maxima was holding, Maxima the sniper, is less effective at killing Transformers than just falling down. So basically, what Windblade has in her hands is a long-distance slap machine. Like, that's all it is, just, ow! Why'd you do that, lady? That's all it is, and it's weird. And this brings me to yet another comparison with Transformers Energon. It seems like how sturdy you are depends on how important of a character you are. Maxima, who is expendable and the sacrificial lamb, dies because you hit her too hard and her limbs just fly off. Starscream, who is a much more important character, gets shot and is reacting like he just tripped over something. Like, you know, the Family Guy, like, like that. There's nothing else. And, Computron dies because he got smacked through some floors. Menasor dies because he gets cut up by a sword by someone who's like a fifth his height. Like, in Energon, if you were an important character, you could take a bunch of shots and fall down and be hurt, but you wouldn't ever die. Whereas if you were a background character, one shot, bye-bye. You explode in like a puff of dust and then you're gone. And that's the second time I've had to compare the show explicitly to Energon. Stop making me do that. It makes me feel dirty inside. Yep. So I feel like I could say more about this episode, but I also feel like I've talked for, quite a while. This is already longer than my review of the last episode. This review is already 5 times longer than the actual episode was. That's good. So, to sum up, do not focus on politics in your show, especially if the characters involved in politics are not interesting. Try to be consistent with how much damage a weapon does. For the love of God, check the frame rate. And maybe write better or something. I don't know. But this show so far is really suffering from a lot of problems. But I am still going to watch it because I'm Transformers garbage, and I sort of feel like I have to. And that's not the best reason to keep your audience entertained, and there's still time, I think, to improve. But so far, it's not looking good, folks. So we'll see where it goes from here. This is Dragon Keeper 19600 signing off.
Starscream!
An attack! Sound the alarm!